And we are ready to go. All right. So there's some lovely and outdated pictures from your presenters. Amber Cook, Associate Director of Faculty Outreach and Support for the Writing Center, Anne Rojas, Subject Liaison, College of Education for the Library, and myself, Manager of Beardless Self, Manager of Faculty Outreach and Student Communication for the Academic Skills Center. Hopefully those are some familiar faces you've all seen before. If not, you'll probably be seeing more of us. Next, I want to talk about the objectives that we are trying to achieve with this webinar. First, we really want to make sure that everybody here has a clear idea of what the Center for Academic Excellence is comprised of and where it is situated within Walden. We want to share 5 student resources tips from each center, and that's why it's called 15 tips for supporting your students, because there are 3 of us and we each have 5 tips. We want to provide contact information for both faculty and students. We know that these tips are helpful, but if you don't know who to contact or how to send your students to the right people, that they're really not that helpful. So we want to make sure that at the end of this, all of us are able to give you the information you need to walk away from this webinar with an active link or somewhere to send your students or one of our email addresses in case you have a follow-up question. Of course, at the end and throughout the section, we'll have different questions, or excuse me, different breaks for questions. We'll try to keep our eyes on the chat pod to make sure that everything is going all right and make sure that we can answer anything that's going along. So next, I just want to explain it, the Center for Academic Excellence. The CAE, Center for Academic Excellence, I'm going to call it CAE from now on because it might be a little bit for the sake of brevity. The executive director is Sue Davidson. And within the Center for Academic Excellence, or CAE, is the Academic Skills Center, the Library, and the Writing Center. And you notice I placed the director for each center and the executive director of CAE as well. Dr. Melanie Brown for ASC, Michelle Hyder for the Library, Brian Timmerman for the Writing Center. All right, moving along. And there's my title slide. Pretty simple, straightforward. ASC. My name is Shawn Picht again, and I'm going to go over the 5 tips, and we're going to go through this. All right. Tip number 1 from the Academic Skills Center is have your students make a one-on-one tutoring appointment. And as you notice here, there's a lot of stuff. We offer 60-minute live synchronous appointments, tutoring appointments that are one-on-one that students can make 2 per week in a variety of subjects. Now, depending on what school you're in or what college you're in, these subjects might matter more or less to you. We have an accounting and finance tutor. We have a math tutor, an MS Office tutor that has Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. We have In Vivo and Quality of Concepts tutor, SPSS, and Statistics and Biostats. So these are a range of tutoring that we offer for different students depending on what their questions are or what their interest is. And you notice there's not a link here or anything, but that will show up at the end of the PowerPoint. But we just want to make sure that you guys are aware of the various variety of tutoring availability from the Academic Skills Center. These are really straightforward. It uses the WC Online, the Writing Center, the WC Online format. It's very straightforward to do that, and then the students meet through Skype or through phone. Next, we have additional statistics support. Students can join a statistics group drop-in session. As you can see here from the little circular map, they visit the ASC homepage for the access link, and these happen every weekend. They happen at 10 a.m. on Saturday Eastern Time and on Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. So these are work very well for students who have a nagging question, a nagging statistics question, and a drop-in. They can drop in and ask a question, or they can just listen to somebody else ask a question and maybe find the answer that way. So any course-related statistics issues they are having, they can drop in to the drop-in session and speak to one of our tutors who is live and waiting to answer questions during these times. It's hosted in Connect, just like this webinar is, and students can drop in and leave whenever they see fit or however they see. So again, this is course-related stuff, and I'm sorry, I should have mentioned that earlier. All the tutoring, the one-on-one tutoring that I mentioned is course-related tutoring. We do have stuff for doctoral students, and I'm going to save that to the next few tips, but these are both for course-related. For any type of statistics help with doctoral research, you want to visit the CRQ, or Center for Research Quality. ASC tip number 3, and we are going to shift gears to our Center for Academic Excellence courses. Now you notice we went from tutoring and statistics and group drop-in and all these different things, and we changed gears to another side of the Academic Skills Centers, which is our courses and workshops. So the first thing I want to highlight here are the vast array of courses. And if you download these slides, you can look at the little details. I tried to squeeze as much as in there as possible without being too terrible to read. Hopefully you can, but hopefully if you download those slides, you can see them a lot easier too. I won't read everything, but I just want to let you know that these are some of the newer ones that are available. All these courses are $195. They are on quarter and semester terms, and they are for graduate students and doctoral students. So there's Graduate Writing 1 and 2, which were just recently revised in the last 2 years. Basic APA Style was revised with those as well. Writing Literature Review was just revised this year. And 2 upcoming courses this year are called Critical Thinking for Social Change and Reading Techniques for Graduate Study. Those were both created by Hillary Wentworth, who's in the Academic Skills Center, and Beth Nastachowski from the Writing Center. The final one is SPSS and Statistics Seminar, and that's for doctoral students specifically. That one you'll notice is a little different because it is 6 weeks and 0 credits, and it is training in SPSS software. So I do want to talk a little bit more about these courses and give you more than just the basic info about what they're for. Graduate Writing 1 and 2, those were revised 2 years ago, and those you probably heard of because they are directly related to the doctoral writing assessment. I'm not going to get into that too much because that's not my role to talk about that. I'm not fully informed enough to talk about that, but I can talk about the courses. When we approached the courses to redesign them, they acted very much as standalone courses. So what I mean by that is that the courses required students to write a 5 to 7 page paper. And we wanted these courses, all of them, all the ones you see up there, we want them to be skill building, and we want students to be able to do those as a supplemental activity to the courses that they're already enrolled in. So we didn't want these courses to be something that would take up so much of their time and take away from their other things that students wouldn't give them as much attention. We wanted these courses to help them build on their graduate writing or on their APA style or writing their literature review while they're already at Walden. So they could do that, take these courses in addition. And we've really, we've changed them so that they are very, the basic composition, intermediate composition, they're very broken down into sentence structure and paragraph structure, and making sure that every week is focused on students' revision. Whether it's effective summary or paraphrasing or synthesizing, we are focusing very much on students' ability to take one sentence and make it into 2, and take 2 sentences and make it into 3, and take a paragraph and make it into 2 paragraphs, and make sure that they are consistently revising those works. Oh, excuse me. I see a question about critical thinking course. I am not. Thank you. I see that question. I'm not 100% certain on that. I can follow up with you regarding that and get some more information to you. I'll be honest with you, I haven't seen the syllabus yet, so I'm not 100% sure. Those courses are so new that we don't even have a website for them yet. So we're still in the mix of making sure we get everything ready to go for those courses. But I will send you that information and make sure that I could follow up you through regarding the critical thinking course. Thank you for that question. It used to be just a critical thinking course in general, but last year we proposed that it be a critical thinking for social change, so that students could focus more on their making their desire and passion for social change more into a specific, like, how do I formulate that? You know, how do I become a practitioner about that? So that's really what this course was designed for. As I promised, we are going to talk about doctoral students a little bit. Tip number 4 is doctoral students can enroll in the Center for Academic Excellence Doctoral Writing Workshop. So as you can see, I'm not going to read the details too much, but you can see they are a pre-proposal, proposal, introduction, literature review, methods section, and post-proposal. These doctoral writing workshops were created by ASC lead faculty Dr. Brenda Hudson. She created the first 4, which were the proposal, introduction, literature, and methods section. And these workshops were so successful that we added the other two. They're $195, just like the courses, and they are at cost. They are 0 credits, and they are for 6 weeks. And the other detail I didn't put up there is they are capped at 10 students. The reason these were created was to give students a place of a community to, that's why it's capped at 10 students, a community place for students to come together and discuss their writing and their writing challenges. So week 1, they do a self-assessment. And then weeks 2 through 5, they work with a faculty member on the writing of their particular portion. So if they enroll in the literature review workshop, they will be working on their literature review. Students must come prepared with a portion of that document in order to work on it. These workshops are focused very much on revision, and then the final week is a review, a review of their assessment, how far they've come, what they've gotten out of it, and what they've learned from the writing feedback they've received. These workshops have been just a wonderful success for students, and they're absolutely just amazing. We've seen great success rates. OIRA did a study in 2014 through 2016 that 72% of the students who took the workshops had their proposals approved. These are wonderful workshops, and I can't say enough about them. Dr. Brenda Hudson also was the subject matter expert on Graduate Writing 1, and she worked with me for Graduate Writing 2 to figure those two out. And we modeled them very much after the workshop so that they were revision focused, writing focused, and very heavy on the idea that students are working towards something. So we're really happy with these workshops. Finally, ASC tip number 5. Now, this might be something that not all of you are familiar with. This is a doctoral peer mentors program. So last year, this was piloted, and it became so successful that Dr. Eric Rydell approved it and wanted more. So we, this year, are rolling it out. It is not completely rolled out to every college, but by midsummer, it will be. So as the name implies, we partner incoming doctoral students with experienced doctoral students up until their first residency. Our statistics and our data shows that students who attend their first residencies are more likely to continue. And if we can offer them support to get them to that first residency, we feel very much that we're getting them there. And that's a really big step. And the doctoral peer mentors, what they do is they give students tips, advice, and they help point them in the right direction. So what they don't do is if students have a question about switching a course or switching something or making a tuition payment, they don't help them with that, but they know exactly who to talk to. And they know exactly where to find that information because they have that experience. They've been through that process. And so they help students who have those questions and maybe otherwise would get stuck along the way and say, you know what, this is really frustrating. I can't do this. These peer mentors are there to say, yes, you can. And here's how to do it. And it's very easy. This is an easy hump to help you with, and they get them over that hump and get them on to the next step. Students must be in their first or second term to enroll in the doctoral program to work with a peer mentor. They can request a peer mentor on a first-come, first-served basis. And it is really for students in their first 3 terms. And also faculty members can recommend that students request one as well. So they can say, hey, you know what, maybe the doctoral peer mentor program would be really good for you. Visit the ASC, and you can request that peer mentor. So again, I will provide you both the email address and the link at the end of the presentation to make sure that you know exactly where to send those students to make sure that they can sign up for any one of the tips that we provided today. That is my 1/3 portion of the presentation, and I think I did it about 15 minutes, which makes me pretty happy. So I do have a question section at the end. So one person asked about the critical thinking course. I will get that out. If anybody else has any other questions, I will definitely tell us which colleges so far the doctoral peer mentor program has come out. Yes, the doctoral peer mentor from I know 100% that it is out in the School of Nursing and the College of Health Sciences. I think now I know this is being recorded, and I hope I don't get chastised for this, but the CMT is coming out in summer. I know it's a rollout based on semesters and quarters, but I can definitely get that information to you as well and put you in contact with Taryn Rye, who's our associate director who oversees the doctoral peer mentor program, and I could get you that schedule as well. Thank you very much for that question. it's a rollout because we have to hire enough people, and then we have to make sure that we get it out in the right quarters and the right semesters timing and stuff like that too. So we're very pleased to have hired a doctoral peer coordinator to coordinate all this, and she is also a Center for Academic Excellence faculty member. She's absolutely wonderful, and we're very excited to have her coordinating the doctoral peer mentors, and we will make sure to get you in touch with those as well. Thank you very much for your questions. I'm going to write down your names and make sure that I email you to get you the right information for the questions that you asked as well. And I believe I am turning it over to Amber Cook, a voice most of you should recognize.
Thank you, Shawn, and thank you too for your presentation. I took some notes myself. This is always really helpful to hear. As Shawn said at the top of the hour, I am the Associate Director of Faculty Outreach and Support for the Writing Center, so probably a lot of you have heard from me at some point in the past. If you haven't, I'm not doing my job very well, so make sure to connect with me and get in touch with me in my mailing list. All right, so I'm going to talk through the Writing Center's tips. And I want to start with something that's relatively new to the Writing Center, which is our set of self-paced modules. So these are a series of kind of curated resources around specific topics that work well for students who need a little deeper dive in some of the more common problem areas in student writing. So this is something that's a little bit more intensive than just going to our website and looking up information about a specific grammar issue or scholarly writing issue, and then a little less intensive than taking a course. So it's a good middle step if you're working with a student who needs to maybe set aside some time for really getting a handle on grammar or getting a handle on APA or plagiarism prevention, those sorts of things, but they're not quite ready to commit to taking a course, or you feel like they could perhaps work on it themselves on their own and make some progress. So it's sort of a specific type of tool. There are a few things about it that are especially nice and a little different than the rest of what we offer at the Writing Center. For one thing, there is a pre-module and post-module quiz, which is a nice way to for the student to really take a look at where their skills are when they begin, and then also a nice way for them to demonstrate improvement. So if they took a pre-module quiz, they got a sense of where some of their shortcomings were on a certain topic, and then in the post-module quiz they can see some improvement. That's great in terms of just the learning there. And it's also nice because I know some faculty and even some programs are using this in more formal ways to find out if a student's actually followed through. So the student can send you the certificate of completion that they'll receive after taking that post-module quiz and successfully passing it. So it can be a nice way to create a sort of little mini learning plan for a student who needs some extra work in some of these topics. So you'll see the topics on the top left. We have a set of modules on grammar, plagiarism prevention, 2 different types of APA modules, and then our newest one is on academic paragraphing. So these are topics where we have a lot of resources, and what these modules look like is basically a collection of those resources. So a student will watch a brief video, and then the next thing they'll do is look at a web page, then they'll look through a blog post, and this module sort of takes them through each of those things, and it's a nice multimedia experience, a little more engaging than just reading a lot of text. Although text is part of it, it's not everything. So I always recommend this to faculty members who are feeling like they'd like to give their student more in-depth instruction, but obviously that goes above and beyond what you're expected to do in the course of a classroom. So this can be a nice complementary resource for students who need some support in these areas. The next thing I want to mention, and this is probably our most well-known service already, but I think it's always nice to kind of take a closer look at it and see how this service functions, is our paper review service. So when students make an appointment for a paper review, what they're basically making an appointment for is time with one of our writing instructors who will provide sort of a mini lesson for the student based on the student's writing. And I said it that way because I think sometimes students think that what the paper review service is a chance for them to sort of run their paper through an English major person and then it'll come out the other side perfect, which is not necessarily what we're doing here. We do hope that with help and interventions from one of our writing instructors, the paper will improve. But our goal really is skill improvement and writing skill development, as opposed to editing a paper or proofreading it or fixing it for submission to their course. So as much as you can set that expectation with students, that will make for a better experience for them when they come to the Writing Center. It can also be a good starting point for students who haven't quite identified what they need. So maybe you have recognized or they've recognized that their writing needs some help, but don't really exactly know where to start. A paper review is never a bad place to start, because it really does allow the student to take their writing to one of our staff members, and then our staff members can say, maybe here are 3 things that I'm seeing patterns of errors with, or something that could be strengthened in your writing, and then they'll provide additional resources that they can then pursue. So it does work as a little bit of a gateway to our other resources if they're feeling overwhelmed, or if you're feeling overwhelmed, trying to identify specific resources that match their specific writing skill deficits. Just on a technical level, it does work through a system that we call MyPass, which is kind of an appointment system, and they load their paper to that system on the day that they've elected to be ready with their paper, and then our staff have 1 to 2 days to respond with feedback. Usually they respond the same day. Sometimes there are cases where they need to respond the following day. As you probably recognize, some students don't work on that kind of timeline in terms of preparing their paper ahead of time. So it's also something where students can take a previously graded paper or another piece of writing that they've done for another course even, and send it to our team, and that will give them some impressions of their writing in general that they can then take to their future writing. Let's see, anything else there? Yeah, just again on the technical note, we do have 3 separate schedules. So we've got times set aside for undergraduate students, for graduate students, and then we have a pre-proposal schedule. And so what that means is students who are working on a premise or a prospectus, anything that happens before the actual proposal or chapter or section writing of the capstone. Once students are in their actual proposal and writing pieces of their final capstone, they're no longer eligible for this service. Partly because it's just not feasible. We have 30 minutes per appointment. We're not in editing mode, we're really in skill development mode, which is not appropriate really for students who are all the way into their capstone. We have other resources for students at that level that we'll talk about too. But just as a reminder too, those are the 3 options for folks pursuing that. And students can make up to 2 appointments a week, and they can make the appointments before they have their paper ready. So they can go ahead and sort of reserve their spot, work on their paper, and then as long as they have their paper loaded to the system by that morning, then they're fine. So just something to keep in mind. They don't have to have everything completely ready by the time they actually make the appointment. It just needs to be ready by the appointment time. All right, something else I'd like to mention is our webinar series. So much like the webinar that we have today, webinars are a nice opportunity for students to interact with our staff in a live setting. They can hear our voices, they can see other people, other peers that are in the session as well, and they can participate in activities and chat and just feeling like they're in a learning environment that's a little different from their typical day-to-day learning environment at Walden. So we have a lot of students who come to almost all of our sessions because they really like that learning environment. We have about 4 live sessions a month, and we try to rotate topics. So any given month, there's usually an APA webinar, some sort of grammar webinar, some sort of session dedicated to doctoral capstone work, and then a variety of other sessions. So things like skill development around, paraphrasing, for instance. We might have a workshop of paraphrasing, other scholarly writing skills. We have sessions specific to master's students and to multilingual students. So we've got a wide variety of sessions there. We do know that for a lot of students, coming up with time in the workday or depending on what time zone they're in, the live sessions just don't work well for them. So we do have a webinar archive, and there's, I think at this point, over 40 hours of instruction on that webinar archive. And as you'll see in this screenshot on the left-hand side, we've got those divided up into categories. So you can see all of the different types of categories we have there. Most of the sessions are about an hour, and we do have transcripts as well and slides as well. So students who may not be able to sit through a whole hour but just sort of want to kind of take a skim through will be able to do that in those ways. And it's something that I think is really nice too if you get to know the service as well, and if you feel like you have attended a webinar or heard students talk about a webinar that's specifically helpful, you can always link directly to that from your feedback or from your classroom. A lot of you who teach in graduate programs, one that I would recommend is called Writing at the Graduate Level. So if you decide to kind of poke around in the webinar archive, that's probably the place that I would send you first. It's a nice overview of expectations around scholarly writing, around plagiarism prevention, students who are maybe new to a master's or a doctoral program. It's a really nice session for them to kind of get the lay of the land in terms of what's expected of them in writing. So I would recommend that as a starting place if you're not quite sure where to start. All right, we also have two specific websites I wanted to point out. The Writing Center is, sort of one big overarching center, but within that center there are two offices. We have the Office of Writing Instruction, which is kind of our traditional writing center. This is the group that does the paper reviews, provides most of the content for our webinars and modules and across our main website. And then we also have a team called the Office for Academic Editing, and that's the team that focuses on the doctoral capstone. So they provide the final form and style review for the doctoral capstones that students write. And then they also provide lots of supports for students who are in the process of writing that capstone. So we have separate websites for each of those two offices. The main Writing Center website has a lot of the resources that I've already mentioned, modules, webinars, paper reviews. You can also find links to Grammarly there and lots of our other resources. And then the Doctoral Capstone Form and Style site is where we house all our information for students who are at the capstone. And you'll find there, you probably can't see on the tiny little screenshot right there, but we have templates for each of the dissertation, doctoral study, project studies that we have out there. Lots of resources for students who want advice from editors on how to have a successful form and style review. A lot of our editors will actually perform live form and style reviews so students can see what they're looking for, how that process works. So there's lots of resources there that are relevant to that piece of the student body. And it also explains the resources that are available to those students, which are a little bit different than the resources that we have for students in their coursework. As a general rule, and I think this is probably true for the other CAE units and for really most websites at Walden, there's so much content that it can be a little bit tricky to sometimes find what you're looking for if you have your eye out for a specific topic. So highly recommend the search bar. If you type in your topic in the top right, for us it will pull up all of our web content, also any blog posts we have on the topic that you're looking for, any webinars we have on the topic that you're looking for. So it's a really nice way to get a comprehensive collection of resources on the topic that you might be seeking for your students. And that's a nice way to use that for your feedback or for classroom announcements. The other thing I want to point out, you'll see on both of those screenshots, and again I think on the other sites as well, is Quick Answers, which is a really nice database of pre-populated frequently asked questions and answers to go with those frequently asked questions. So we've noticed, for us anyway, a lot of our student-facing role accounts have been seeing a little less traffic since we got Quick Answers, because we know that students are finding the responses that they need there without having to wait for a response from one of our staff. So I think that's a really handy way to get quick information, especially for students who work kind of all hours or who want a quick answer as they're in the middle of their writing. That's a good way for them to find an answer without having to sort of wait for a human response. And then the last tip I wanted to mention, we offer something called course visits. And these are student-facing service, but they're available only by faculty request. So if you would go to our main Writing Center site, you wouldn't see these mentioned because they're not something that a student can pursue on his or her own. It's something that a faculty member has to request. So the screenshots you see here, these are from our Writing Center Toolbox for Faculty, which is our faculty-facing website. You can access that from the main Writing Center website or from the faculty resources site that CFE maintains. And a course visit, I know some of you on this call have had these before for your classes. And I know from the National Faculty Meeting that we have had lots of positive feedback about these. So definitely look into it if you haven't done them so far. What these are, it's a chance for us to kind of bring the Writing Center directly to your students. And we started doing this in part because we've heard from a lot of faculty that it's not that we don't have enough resources for students, it's that we can't seem to get students to take advantage of them. So that's what we heard from faculty a lot, that I wish that I could really make the students see the value of what you all offer. And so a course visit is one way that we can sort of show up in your classroom and show off all the services that we have, and then that might be what we what the student needs to kind of get that nudge to actually pursue our resources. So the way these work is that as a faculty member, you can make a course visit request, and you'll see the links to that there on the screenshot for the Toolbox site. And you'll fill out a form suggesting a week that would be good for us to come. You can indicate topics that you'd like us to cover, where your students are in their program, that sort of thing. And what we'll do is we'll actually, for the week that you've chosen, or the week that works well for both of us, we'll enter that classroom and create a thread within your discussion board. And then throughout the week, post things to that thread. So we'll post information about some of the Writing Center resources that I've already mentioned. We can post about a topic of your choosing. So if you know that your students are really struggling with APA citation style, we can spend some time on that. And then throughout that week, we also answer questions. Sometimes there's lots of questions. Students will be really active, and we get, we spend upwards of an hour sometimes each day with that one class. And some classes tend to be a little bit more quiet, where no one's quite willing to ask the question in a forum that's maybe a little bit more public that they're comfortable with. But what we've noticed in looking at our data is that either case, either with the quiet class or the active class, we see a lot of those students then showing up at our other services. So we'll see their names in webinars the next week, or we'll see them make an appointment for a paper review. So we know that that kind of introduction to our services is sometimes all students need to feel like this is something that they want to check out. So I'd highly recommend you pursuing that as well, as a way for students to kind of get access to all of the resources that we just discussed and other ones as well. All right, so that's what we have for the Writing Center. Are there any questions about any of that? I see a little bit of typing, so I'll wait just a second. And if anyone has questions later, I'll be watching the chat box while Anne does her presentation, and we can make sure to get back in touch with you. All right, so Arana says, I had a specialist come this quarter, but it was posted outside the discussion thread, and students didn't visit the outside thread. That's a good question, and I can talk to the course visit coordinator about that. We have tried to keep it's within the same week, so it should be visible when they log in to the discussion board, but we've tried not to get too embedded in the actual course discussion for fear of kind of getting lost in there. But I think we've had other faculty members say it might be more useful to be right there, just depending on your particular course and the way it's designed, to be right there in the actual topical discussion board. So we can definitely talk about that. When you make that next request, if you indicate that, I think Sarah can probably work with you. Thanks for that question. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and pass over to Anne, and I'll keep an eye on the chat box if there's other questions.
Okay, thanks everybody for coming today. My name is Anne Rojas, and I am one of the librarians here at Walden. I do liaise to the College of Education, although I work with students in all programs from all colleges through residencies and appointments and through reference. So the first library tip, I would like to encourage everybody to explore our new website. Spending some time getting to know the library will save your students a lot of time down the road. And what we've done is remodeled the library website based on use statistics. The library has a lot of content, and in the past, quite a bit of that content was buried pretty deep, and students had a hard time finding it. So we're hoping with the new layout that users can find what they need more easily. So just a little bit about what you'll see here. Everybody is wanting the Googleization of libraries and other search everything. So what we've done is put a main search box here on the home page. And what that searches by default, I don't know if you can see it very well, but when you go visit the page, you can see that it searches Thoreau, which is one of our search tools that searches multiple databases. And so this is a really good search box for anybody who has no idea where they want to start. They can put in their search terms and it will search the content of the library's collections. We also have over to the right, there's another radio button where you can search everything, and that will search not just the collections, but also the instructional content and quick answers through the library website. So Again, that's even a wider net so that if students are having a hard time figuring out peer review, what it is, that sort of thing, then they can search that. Um, so that's a good place to start, as I mentioned, for those who don't know where to begin. Um, we also have laid out here very prominently subject resources, which I'll talk about in just a moment, as well as course guides. And then underneath we have direct access from the homepage to our database list, alphabetical list, as well as finding articles by title or by DOI and dissertations, and also searching journals by title, books, and then additional information, always the additional information. We have a library skills section, which is where people can get help, and I will talk about that as well. And down at the bottom, we have a news feed, what's new, that comes in this case, just below the fold, as well as our upcoming webinars. It feeds into the home page as well. And just so that you know, anytime you're on a library website page, you'll have this main bar across the top. So you'll have access to getting started on research, getting help, the different services, and Ask a Librarian. So that's our tip number one, is just getting to know it. We only launched this earlier this month, and as everything takes on a new look, it takes a while for people to get used to that. So library tip number two, I encourage you to request assignment guides. And hopefully you're all familiar with the course guides, which we have here on the main page very prominently placed. And this is usually students' first entry point into the library. It comes up with a list of all of the courses by course code and number. And when they go there, they're going to get a list of all of their required readings linked out. Anything that's available in the library is linked out from these pages. And what we're hoping that faculty are more and more aware of is that we do have the option to put in resources to help students with assignments and discussion posts. You can see them over on the left-hand side here, based by week. And this is really for anything that's going to be requiring a little bit more research. If you want students to be searching for quality resources as opposed to open websites. And it can really save students a lot of time. Anybody who's unfamiliar with the library, unfamiliar with how an online library works, basically what we do is lay it out as on the landing page of the assignment guides. We let them know what the assignment is asking them for, what the outcome is as far as the research requirement, and then we give them normally step-by-step instructions, usually with a sample search and some suggested resources. So if you have a course with an assignment that's research dependent, we can create an assignment guide for your class. I encourage you to go in and look to see if something might already exist there, because you can point your students in that direction. And I also want to point out that it's never too late. If you find that students have handed in assignments and researched only open web sources, or they didn't really come up with the quality or the type of resources that you were expecting them to, we can add an assignment guide to help the students through the next term. And I'll talk about faculty resources in tip 4 so that you know where to go to request these. But I just wanted to be sure that people were aware of that being available. For library tip number 3, I encourage everybody to point their students toward their subject pages. I did mention that you can cast a really wide net by using that main search box, but when you go down to the subject resources, you'll find that there are specific pages laid out, of course, to align with all the different programs here at Walden. And this can help them get to curated collections and narrow down their search as opposed to casting that really wide net from the beginning. Now, right now, because we are going through a facelift through library websites, we do have 2 different versions going right now. So the older version you can see the layout here. You've got the main introduction and then recommended databases. Over on the left-hand side, we have additional resources for things like books, statistics. For this health sciences, we have evidence-based practice. And then down below the fold on this, you can see a photo of your subject liaison and also links to make appointments with the liaisons as well. The newer version, which hopefully is going to be a little bit cleaner and tidier, again, easier for people to find things. We have a main search box, again, similar to what we put on the main page, except that in this case, this is the business and management page. It's going to be searching only a curated list of databases that our subject liaison, Audrey, has chosen to be searched in this main box. And of course, we have some help immediately below. I'm not finding what I need because people do tend to get frustrated pretty early in the process. And then you'll see underneath the recommended databases for business, their company reports, and then journals. And as you move down through the page, you'll find that there's additional research help, and this is mostly what we had in the older version over on the left-hand side. A lot of these are capstone resources, although they can be used by master's students quite a bit too, depending upon how much they depend upon research that's related to statistics, theory, methodology, anything like that. Also on the new layout, you'll see your subject liaison right at the top. We have a quick answers search box as well, which Amber had mentioned earlier. That's searching the frequently asked questions about things. It can be a really easy way for people to get answers to their questions from the beginning. And there's also a link to Ask a Librarian and to make an appointment with a subject liaison. And I didn't mention the subject liaison appointments as a library tip, but hopefully you're aware of that. We have it available for students, usually for capstone students working on dissertations or project studies, but anybody can make an appointment with a librarian, including faculty. If you ever want to talk to one of us, you can do that as well. For tip number 4, I encourage you to use faculty services. And to find that, you'd go to the services tab up at the top of the page. And I'm just going to talk for a minute. You can see here that we've got student, faculty, alumni services. And we're just going to go into the faculty toolbox page to show you what that looks like. Basically, you can request help for yourself or for your students from the faculty services area. For students who are struggling, we have a student referral form on this page. All you have to do is ask us, and we'll reach out to the student. A lot of students are reluctant to go to the library, or they don't think of going to the library. We're not sure why that is. Could be because they think that they're supposed to know things already and they're embarrassed to ask. But we encourage everybody to ask for help, whether it's faculty asking for help for a student or for yourselves. Also, just so that you know, we have a newsletter where you can find out about our staff and what's happening in the library. And you can also request through our liaison services that we run searches for you. We don't run searches for students, but we do run searches for faculty. And that would be available to you whether you're looking for help for your own research or if you're looking for supplemental resources for a course, or if you're looking for publishing information as well. You can contact one of us so that we can help you out. And then finally, for tip number 5, know how to get help. And this on our new website, you can see that we have a get help. This can also be found from any of our website pages. And you can see here that we have it broken down into a number of different sections. Under Build Library Skills, we have links to our library skills guides. These are static guides that have help on everything from how to choose a topic to how to conduct a literature review, the research end of it. We also have links to tutorials here because we do have quite a few tutorials now, and those usually run between 5 and 10 minutes. And they are on topics such as keyword searching, searching our methodology, resources database, citation chaining, lots of topics being added to that as well. And then we also have the materials that come from the residency library sessions because oftentimes students are asking for those. We have webinars available as well. We have both the upcoming webinars and our archived webinars. And for the upcoming webinars, I encourage anybody to sign up for any topic that they find interesting, whether they can attend it live or not, because if they are registered, they will be sent the link afterward in an email, usually a day or two afterward. The recorded webinars can be really useful for library instruction simply because students like to have the ability to pause it and then go into the library web pages and try out what's being demoed in the webinar and then go back to the webinar and resume play. So those can be really useful for students as well. We do have a little bit of technical help too. It's limited, but often we can get students going on basic tech issues, whether it's questions about browsers, citation management, PDFs, that sort of thing. We also have Ask a Librarian available here, and we do answer questions 7 days a week. It's not 24/7, but it is 7 days a week, and we answer through email and chat. People can leave a voice message as well, but we do answer through email. And again, the Quick Answers is a really great resource for students. And since Amber mentioned it as well, just to remind you that it's answers to frequently asked questions for all of student support. So it's not just Library and Writing Center, but academic skills, financial aid, career services, all of it. So it's a really good way for students to get their questions answered, particularly when they're studying during off hours. So that's all that I've got for the library tips at this point. Does anybody have any questions? Yes, so question comes through, are faculty able to acquire articles not available from the Walden Library? Yes, under faculty services, which would have been your tip number 4, you can find our document delivery service and you can request, it's basically what they call interlibrary loan in a paper library. It's sent to you usually within about a week in PDF format. So yes, you can request those. We do everything that we can to get the materials for you. So good question, thank you. Any other questions on the library? Hey, I don't see anybody typing, so I think I'll just pass it over to Shawn.
Thank you, Anne. And thank you, Amber, for the wonderful presentations. And thank you, everybody, for sticking with us here to find out more about the Center for Academic Excellence. Before we go, I want to make sure that all of you leave here with the ability to contact us in some way, shape, or form. So we're going to have a little review of the tips that we all shared. And again, the best way to do this, if you want to download either the PDF or the PowerPoint in the lower left-hand corner, all these blue links are active. So you don't need to search, you don't need to look for anything. You just click on the blue link and it takes you right to the tip that you were talking about. So we included the link for the tip and the email addresses associated with that tip. So you can see the Academic Skills Center has the 5 tips, and we have our Writing Center with the various email addresses ready to go that you can email. And next we have, and finally, the library and the various email addresses available for the library. And also, anytime you want to access that tip, like if you had a question about acquiring articles, and Anne mentioned tip number 4, That's the link right there for it. So you can please download those. It'll be very helpful. Also, again, I just want to remind everybody, this webinar is recorded, and we are going to edit it a little bit and then make sure it gets out to everyone who attended and who was unable to attend, to make sure that if they want to watch that recording again or watch a specific portion again, they have the ability to do so. Finally, I'll make sure that all of you know how to contact us. There's no roll account here. There's no general email. This is us. This is Shawn.Picht, Anne.Rojas, and Amber.Cook. This is all of us. So if you have a direct question for us, please send us an email. This is what we do. So please, we will definitely make sure, if we don't have the information, we will definitely make sure to get that in your hands. If you had any questions, we'll definitely try and follow up after the webinar is completed. I also want to send out a few other information. All three of us have faculty newsletters that we send out in various forms on a monthly or bi-monthly or quarterly basis. So please contact us if you'd like to sign up for those newsletters. They're really informative, and they usually offer things like copy and paste announcements. Amber mentioned those earlier, and boy, I tell you, there's nothing better than being able to give you guys the information that you can give to students. So if we tell one or two of you, you have hundreds of students that you can tell this information to. It makes our job so much easier when we have a copy and paste announcement that can get into your hands that hundreds of students can see. So we thank you for your enthusiasm with those announcements, you're using those announcements, and your enthusiasm with our newsletters, and for showing up to this webinar and asking questions and being involved. We really appreciate that. Again, this was recorded. Email us directly for any questions or any newsletter signups. We will love to hear from you. And if you want to download the slides in PDF or PowerPoint form, you can have all those access addresses right there. Finally, thank you very much for attending. We were really happy to present this. It's been a while since we all got together and presented something like this. We had some great turnout, so we really appreciate that. Anne, Amber, is there anything that you would like to say finally before we close this out?
I'm good. Just a quick thank you from me as well. I appreciate everybody's time.
Yes, thanks everybody for coming.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I'm going to stop the recording, and in a few minutes I will close the room. But thank you very much. So if you have any other questions, we'll hang around for a minute or two and answer those. But I'm going to stop the recording. So thank you, everybody.